What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at some upcoming CRPGs. As a channel that covers those pretty extensively, I tend to have my eye on any that might be releasing in the future, and given that I have not talked about that subject in a little bit, now seemed like a fitting time to discuss it. Though, right away here at the beginning, I did just kind of want to generally mention that, for starters, the definition of what a CRPG even is often up for debate to some extent, with many people arguing at the edges of what that definition is for people. And that reason, combined with the fact that I am one person and cannot cover basically everything, means that there might very well be something I missed or that you would consider a CRPG. So if I don't list any of those on your mind here, by all means add them to the comment section below so more people know about them. But we've got a fair few to discuss. Now I'm going to break this video up into a few different parts. Upcoming CRPGs that I think look pretty solid and are likely to release. A couple that are much more questionable just because they're small and very indie. And then a couple that are actually currently in Kickstarter form, which means they may or may not actually materialize in the future, but just something to know. Now we're going to kick this off with Shadow of the Road. This is one of two games being published by Owlcat Games, behind some of my favorite CRPGs, but Shadow of the Road specifically is being developed by a company called Another Angle Games, and it's going to be blending turn-based tactics, of course, but also the traditional CRPG side of things that tends to go alongside of that, specifically set in feudal Japan, meeting both magic and machinery, which seems to be like a steampunk machinery situation, but this game has few details at the moment, so it's a little debatable. But the few previews and trailers they've shown of this one already look pretty good, and it absolutely has my interest. Though unfortunately no news on like a release date or anything for this one. It is still far too early for that to be of note, but it's definitely in the works. Now following on from that, we then have Newark Line. I recently got to play a demo of this that I believe will be available for everyone in just a few days on Steam Next Fest, and it was surprisingly good. Now this game wears its inspiration of Arcanum on its sleeve. It has a very magic meets steampunk vibe to it, and they're often at odds with each other, causing all manner of problems. So in many ways, I would almost consider this just like a spiritual successor to that game. That seems to be what they're aiming for, and I was pleasantly surprised with what I played of the demo. And while there are certainly a few questions and things lingering around, it looks to be shaping up pretty well. Though in terms of an actual release date, still no information on that one as of yet. Third up, though, we then have Swordhaven, Iron Conspiracy. This is from the developers of Atom RPG, and also does not currently have a release date or anything, but this one was actually the result of a successful Kickstarter from that company, Atom Team. And while Atom RPG was certainly rough around the edges, it was also a pretty solid game if you were willing to get past that, meaning that I'm excited to see what they can learn from that experience and spin into something much more fantasy-based, which the name alone, but certainly the vibe as well, would probably tell you seems to be taking a lot of inspiration from those initial Baldur's Gate titles as well, the Iron Conspiracy part being pretty on the nose, in fact. But then we have Guild Saga, Vanished Worlds. So this one is like a combination of CRPG and JRPG mechanics. It clearly takes a lot of inspiration from something like Divinity Original Sin 2, but manages to feel unique at the same time. Now this one is actually launching into early access, I believe, like today. I'll likely have a standalone video for it relatively soon as well. But I've actually also taken a look at this one previously because they had a public demo available, which I believe is also available right now. So if you wanted to check it out for yourself, you certainly could, but I liked what I played of it previously, and I'm looking forward to see if they can take the community feedback from an early access period and make this game especially noteworthy. But we will see about that when we actually get to that point. Now following on from that, we then have Passageway of the Ancients. This one is fairly indie but looks promising. It's inspired by classic CRPGs, as you could probably tell from what little I'm able to show of it, because there isn't a lot to show of it as it stands, but it's got that art style of a lot of older titles from like the 90s and 2000s, which means it's probably going to be a bit of a nostalgia trip for those players in particular, but honestly anything CRPG is noteworthy for me these days. But off the top of my head, to give a more recent example, I would say this game actually looks a lot like Black Geyser to me, so we shall see. Now, again though, this one is just simply very indie, and as for its quality, it's very hard to say at the moment, so when we get more information, I'll take a look at it and be sure to let people know what I think. And the next one on the list is technically a little bit of cheating on my part, because it is not actually an upcoming game, it already released, but you know what, it's my channel and I can do what I want. especially since this is another very small game that released recently that I will hopefully have a dedicated video for you here before too long for. But this one is called Banquet For Fools, which released into early access just back on September 30th, and I believe it was made by 2 people, which is impressive, honestly, given the looks of it. Though this one went completely under the radar for me. I've had people mention it to me since then, but I had not seen it prior to that at all. And when I get a spare moment, I plan on jumping into it to bring you the news of it and what you can actually expect from playing it. But from what I understand, it's set in a unique world where our party has to solve a mystery of a village that just kind of was randomly abandoned. Everyone went missing, which is going to involve building your character, selecting traits and skills and everything you would expect from a game like this, so it looks pretty interesting. Now these next couple titles, literally 2 of them, are rough around the edges as far as I can tell. I would be hard pressed to recommend them in their current state, and honestly they look pretty far off from done as well. This starts with The Way of Wrath. The Way of Wrath is about a tribe that is about to be attacked, and you have some time to prepare for it with your given skills and your party and everything. So while combat will be a relative rarity here, you're going to be running around that game world exploring options and trying to fix as much as possible to prepare your tribe for this incoming danger. And it seems like the type of game that is really short but very replayable, which is what I'm looking forward to about it. But I do think this game is teetering on the edge of really just more of a narrative title, and it's clear they don't exactly have an exorbitant budget, which is why I'm still on the fence about it. But I've also played a little bit of this one, which is where the footage is coming from, and I enjoyed what I played of it, so we shall see. Now the other one in this section is the title of Worldstone Chronicles, an upcoming party-based CRPG utilizing real-time with pause, developed by a company called Clover Club Media. This one looks early days, and while it doesn't look bad gameplay-wise, at least as far as these types of games go, a lot of the UI elements and things like that are clearly still being worked on and not in their final form, which is, of course, why it's upcoming. But this one does have a demo if you'd like to check it out for yourself, so certainly keep that in mind. But then towards the end of the video here, there are 2 Kickstarter titles I wanted to mention. One has already been funded. This is Avernum 4 from Spiderweb Software. They are behind a great many CRPGs, Avernum and Geneforge most notably. I've been going through the Geneforge recently via some remasters the company has done, and that is what Avernum 4 is here. It is a remaster of that older title of the same name, of course. Now, ahead of the release of Avernum 4, which will likely be sometime next year, or this remake, I should say, I still plan to get around to Avernum 1 through 3, which I've heard are very good. But admittedly, those are some of the CRPGs I have yet to get around to, and have been very slowly making my way through, which is why I've played those Geneforge titles. But believe it or not, they've even got other series of CRPGs as well, as that company's been around for some time. But then last on the list, we have Dragon's Demand, a Pathfinder 2e adventure, which is of note to me, as I'm sure you know if you watch the channel a lot. I love Pathfinder, and any project of that nature is of note to myself, which is why I had heard about A Dragon's Demand here, which is a CRPG set in that universe, with a somewhat unique take of overcoming a budget problem by simply making all of your characters minis, while you follow along with the Pathfinder adventure path known as A Dragon's Demand. So that, and simply just using the Pathfinder 2e rule set, which is a rare bird in terms of video games, I believe there's literally only one other one, has me quite interested. But of course, this one still has to get funded, and as always, that's a choice you got to make for yourself. This is not an endorsement of that. I have backed it personally because I'm curious to see how that project winds up, but that's a decision you got to make for yourself. Though honestly, the more I see of it, the more potential I think they've got on this one. But that will pretty much do it for this particular video. There's been a look at a whole host of upcoming CRPGs, which hopefully you've enjoyed. Maybe if I did my job correctly, some you didn't know about. But before I wrap up completely, I did want to mention that it is worth noting that there are many games in development right now that are unannounced that we almost know for certain will be CRPGs, like whatever Larian Studios is working on now, and whatever Owlcat Games has in the works personally, as they are also developing games alongside publishing them right now. So I would be willing to bet those will eventually become CRPGs, but obviously there's no information, so I can't really mention them. But with any luck, you're all up to date with CRPG news now, so if you have anything to add, by all means, drop it down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.